Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out, right? We're learning to just trust God no matter what comes our way in our lives. We're just learning to turn it back over to Him and trust Him, right? Because you never know what a day's going to bring, right? We're going to talk about three people today that were not expecting Jesus to walk into their stories, right? And isn't that what we're waiting for? Is for God to just walk into our stories? We don't have to wait till Sunday to go to church. That's a good thing to do. But we don't have to wait to meet Him there. He is with us, and He just walks up into our stories sometimes. And sometimes we're asking Him to, sometimes we're praying for Him to, but sometimes He's in those just unexpectedly, in those day to days, the things that we do every day, day after day, just part of our normal lives. He meets us right there. We don't have to go do something. We don't have to go to, is it Korea that climbs to the top of the mountain so that God can hear them? Is it in Korea? I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East, or somewhere in the East, somewhere that they climb to the top of the mountain, hoping that they're getting close enough to God that God can hear them. Like that few thousand feet is going to make a difference between heaven and earth, right? And so, but maybe God awards that diligence. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's bad. At least they're trying, right? But isn't it just miraculous that this God of light, the creator of the universe, the one that breathes life into Adam, and now we're all still living off of that same breath, that God just shows up in our day to days. He just sometimes it's expected, sometimes it's unexpected. Sometimes we're asking Him to, sometimes we're not. Now I will say this: it's a good thing to just have an open invitation and say, God, just I'll wherever you are, I want to be. Wherever I am, I want you to be. To have God just give in your heart, just give God an open invitation to just be walk in our days, the day to days. Well, so I was reading John this morning because I'm reading back and forth, but I'm reading in just the New Testament right now. And as I was reading John this morning, I was like, I read there were several stories, and I'm going to skip a couple of the stories. And these three chapters, 4, 5, and 6, three things stood out to me though this morning, where they were not expecting Jesus to just show up in their day to days. He was the unexpected factor that He was just going to show up and change not only their day, but their lives, right? The first story is in John chapter 4. We got the woman at the well, and she came there every day. It was a normal day. She was not expecting the Messiah that day, although she did have an expectancy that the Messiah, the Christ, was going to come. As you see is in her discourse later, she's like in verse 25, she says, I know the Messiah is coming. When He comes, He's going to tell us all things. And Jesus reveals Himself to this woman in Samaria, a woman in Samaria, right? He broke all the mores and the rules of the day, right? And He said, I am that Messiah. I am He. I'm it. And then she ran off going to tell everybody, hey, there's a prophet down here. But she was just in the middle of her day to days. She wasn't expecting the Messiah to come to her that day. She hadn't necessarily been praying, oh God, please send Jesus to the well as I go down to get my water. She wasn't praying all those things. She was just doing her day to day stuff. And Jesus walked in. He just walked up and had this discourse with her and talked to her about worship and talked to her, answered her questions, and revealed Himself to her as the Messiah right there unexpectedly as she was just going down to get some water for the day. It even says she left her pots there and went to go tell the men, hey, Jesus is down at the well, right? She left, and that would have been a valuable tool to her in that day. She needed that, right, for her day to days, and she left it for a minute. I'm sure she came back and got it, but she left it because she got focused on Jesus for that moment because He walked into her day to day. And then there was another story in chapter 5. We have the crippled man who had been, it says he had been ill for 38 years. He had an infirmity, and he's laying at the pool of Bethesda, hoping somebody will come by and put him in when the water's troubled, because it says the angel troubles the water, and then whoever gets in the water gets healed. So he had a faint hope of being healed. Although when Jesus unexpectedly walked into his day and even asked him, He said, do you want to be made well? He didn't say, do you want to be put in the pool? Do you want us to toss you in? Do you want us to wait till the water is troubled, till the time is right? He said, do you want to be made well? And the man didn't even know what Jesus had to offer. He said, well, yeah, and some people say this is a little whiny, and I'm not saying that I totally disagree, but he's like, I don't have anybody who puts me in the water when the water gets troubled. Jesus didn't say, Jesus didn't ask him that. He didn't say, why don't you get in the water and get well? He said, do you want to be well? Do you want to be whole? Do you want to be healed? And the man was like, he didn't even answer the question. And Jesus said, just take up your bed and walk, right? And then the Pharisees got mad because Jesus healed somebody on the Sabbath, and he was carrying his bed, and now he's breaking the laws of the Sabbath. There's always religious people to condemn a true relationship with Christ. They'll always be there. There'll always be some sort of Pharisees and Sadducees somewhere that doesn't like the way you serve God. Just serve him anyway. Right? It don't matter. Just serve him anyway. Just love him anyway. Right? Anyway, so but Jesus just walked it unexpectedly, walked into his day to day and changed the trajectory of his life, changed his whole life. Same thing with the woman at the well. Then we have the story in chapter 6 where Jesus, it says that he realized that they were going to try to make him king, which is that. Remember, that's what these guys all thought. They had this misconception that Jesus was going to set up a physical kingdom. And so when he fed the 5,000 here, it says in John 6, then everybody was like, "Oh, this is the prophet. This is the Messiah." And they were going to, and Jesus knew he was going to. They were going to try to come and forcefully make him king. And he wasn't here to set up a natural kingdom. He was here to set up a spiritual kingdom, that one that we live in. The kingdom of God is, y'all know this now, right? Righteousness, peace, and joy. And so when he knew when they were going to try to force him into a natural kingdom, he went away to the mountain alone. It says he got off by himself. And the disciples, it's evening. They're like, we got to go to Capernaum. So let's just come on. Or was it Capernaum? I think so. Yeah. And so they just went, let's just get in the boat. Let's just go across. Jesus will find us somewhere. He'll come somewhere. So then then the storm, they had rowed out about 3 or 4 miles, and unexpectedly, here comes Jesus walking on the water. They were scared, but he said, it's me. Don't be afraid. I just walked into here today. I just walked in here where you didn't expect to see me, in the middle of a storm, in the middle of the night, trying to get somewhere and nothing's working. And then it says, when they received him into the boat, they willingly, once they realized it was him, they let him in the boat, and immediately the boat was on the other side where they were going. They didn't have to navigate. They didn't have to row. It was just done. It doesn't even say in this passage that Jesus calmed the storm. He just got them where they were going. So in these three stories, as I was reading them this morning, I'm like, man, Jesus was just unexpectedly walked into the things they did every single day. Right? There was no fanfare. There was no celebration. There was no announcement. Got the woman going to the well like she did every single day to get water for her family. Right? She had water, needed water to cook with. She needed water to bathe with. They needed water. They didn't have indoor plumbing. So she had to go get water. It was her responsibility to do that every day. She wasn't looking for a supernatural encounter. He unexpectedly showed up in her day to day. The man at the pool of Bethesda, he was there. He stayed there. And Jesus walked in there, and as far as we know, only healed one person. But it mentions that there was a crowd there. He could have waved his hand and healed all of them, but he healed that one who couldn't even see past the pool of Bethesda. He didn't even know who Jesus was. He had no idea, and yet Jesus said, "Take up your bed and walk," and the man did it. Jesus walked into his day to day. His normal, everyday thing was to just lay there because he was crippled. He was ill. He could not walk, right? That was his day to day. And Jesus walked right in there. These dudes rowing the boat, no big deal for them. They did it every day. If you needed to go somewhere back then, you either walked or took a boat, right? And the boat was manually powered. They didn't have little outboard motors or trolling motors even. They had nothing. It was all manual labor here, right? But they had rowed boats all their lives. They had grown up around the Sea of Capernaum. They had grown up around there, and that was their mode of transportation. And they knew how to row a boat. It was their normal, everyday activity. Just row the boat. Let's go to Capernaum. Jesus ain't here. Let's just start rowing, right? And they started rowing. Jesus walked out to them in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the night, while they were performing an everyday thing. He will come to us too. He doesn't always wait till there's a big show. He doesn't always come with a big announcement. He just walks into our day-to-days while we're taking care of our children, while we're taking care of our elderly loved ones, while we're cooking supper. Maybe we're drawing up some water for something. Maybe he comes when we're making coffee. That would be, there you go. But he just walks into our day-to-days. He's unexpectedly walked in. And he just fills the place with peace. He fills the place with love. He comes with his grace. He comes with his mercy, and he equips us to finish whatever we're doing. He doesn't zap us out of it and put us in heaven, right? He lets us finish our day to days, but he changes the trajectory of our lives in the process, because all of a sudden we trust him a little bit more. All of a sudden we believe what he said a little bit more. All of a sudden we have peace that we didn't have before. And he changes the course of our heart for the day. He changes the course of our life, our whole life, because he just walks into those unexpected moments. I encourage you today to just go about your day and look for him to just show up. He may show up in some of the most unusual ways. Who would have thought he would have gone through Samaria to the well to talk to a woman? They didn't do that. As a matter of fact, his disciples said he needs something to eat, and Jesus was like, well, I already, I have something to eat that you don't know of. And they're like, did he stop by McDonald's on his way in here? Did he go through the drive-thru? Did he call an Uber? Right? No. Jesus said, this is my work, and this is my source of energy. This is my source of power, is to just do what I see the Father doing, and that is walking into those unexpectedly into our day-to-days, whatever it is we're doing day to day. He's going to show up there, and he's going to make a difference. All we got to do is trust him. And peace out. Have a great day, you guys. I'll see you bright and early Monday morning.